Hello, PDHP parents and community. It's Carrie Ann Fitzgerald from the Program for the Development of Human Potential. We have been talking about a preventive parents piece, and we have looked at the gateway drugs. We looked at some trends that have been going on. We looked at prescription drug use as a trend. We looked at what was different then and now. A lot of parents have this question, well, why would kids use drugs and alcohol? Well, there are a couple of things that are going on that we have to take a look at. So remember, when we do these parenting pieces, a lot of it is information for you to store, to pull out when you need it, so that you don't have to go rifling through things or be caught empty-handed, if you will, when these conversations come up. One thing I think you can always do is rely on your PDHP staff. Now, in many of our schools, we have counselors, we have prevention education specialists, we have regional coordinators, we have family therapists, we have people available who are having these conversations with the kids today. Okay, so you can always say, hey, do you have anyone from PDHP on staff? Many of you have gotten letters in the beginning of the school year, but I know what a blur the beginning of the school year can be, especially in a year like this. But consider that. Consider saying, hey, yeah, do you have anyone, a counselor or something, in the school? What do they tell you about? And a couple of parents have said that in some of the meetings that we've had in the past or the parent groups that we've run, that they bring that conversation out with the information that's given in the classroom. So it's a really helpful way to start. But one thing for you with all of this information, the idea is assessment for you so that you can assess what's going on with your kids and you can be aware. As we've said, social acceptance or peer pressure, curiosity, and easy access are part of what's going on when it comes to drug and alcohol use or any kind of substance misuse. I want you to consider media. There's so much more media than when we were growing up. It may have been print ads, billboards, commercials. Of course, now it's more of a social media. So what are the messages that the kids are getting? What are the videos that they're watching? What are the pop-ups that come up? Media starts to show some of these drugs, even if they're, socially acceptable, like alcohol. We know that there's an age range, but media starts to show these as more favorable. This is how you have a good time. This is what everyone's doing. This is what the influencers are doing. So kids become desensitized maybe to the disapproval as parents that we have shown forth, because now there are other people in their lives that are influencing them and they're seeing these things. So think about celebrity ads, right? So kids don't see it as a problem behavior. Of course, popularity, fitting in with peers and peer pressure is always there. There's always this curiosity as children get older. They hear about certain things and they want to experience it for themselves. So if an item is available, they're more likely to try. They see family members like parents or older relatives or close family friends and older siblings, just those trusted adults, maybe using. So they become a little more interested in trying for themselves. The perception is that they will look at it as a way to adult, right? To be an adult. They learn from the things that we do so much more than the things that we say. And I always remember that with some of my students when I was teaching 8th grade. I remember one girl was, this is not as severe an example, but I remember one of my students was leaving with tons of books for a long weekend. And I said to her, what are you doing? You're practically falling down the stairs. You have, your book bag packed to the gills. You can't even close it. You have, books in your arms. What's going on? And she said, well, look at you. And I did. And you know what? I had several bags with me filled with books, filled with papers to mark, my gym bag, something to return, my lunch bag, my pocketbook. I mean, everything. So just a simple, viewpoint on what our kids are seeing. But they want to be like us. So they wonder, if we're using these things, if we're, using alcohol, if we're smoking, if we're vaping, they're wondering themselves. Um, Also there are the ideas of coping mechanisms. We don't really hear a lot about that maybe in our day-to-day life, but coping mechanisms are so important because our brains will seek out something to cope. Okay, so they may seek out a substance, and sometimes this can be a positive thing. Maybe the thing that they seek out is, going for a walk, letting off steam, that kind of thing. But if not, they will seek out maybe something that is risky. We look for an escape to our problems. We look for relaxation. We look for a release of anxiety, which I think about that anxiety. And yesterday we were talking about all of these energy drinks and all of these sugar-filled drinks. Sugar can increase anxiety. 1 in 3 children are dealing with anxiety disorders. And I would not be surprised if during this time of pandemic we see those numbers rising. 1 in 3. So looking for substance misuse as a depression remedy, as an energy lift. Looking at ways to express oneself as an individual. We know that our teen and teenagers are always looking for that validation and that expression. And that's very healthy, but of course it's the outlet. How to be an individual, how to decrease inhibition. Kids are more likely to try alcohol and other substances if they see their parents or their older siblings are using alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other substances. So sometimes there's a thing called modeling that we do. So parents, what are we modeling? And I know that this time is stressful. Maybe it's a lot easier to reach for an extra glass of wine. But consider who's watching and consider what that means. So why are they using? Social acceptance, curiosity, easy access. If you have a home bar, think about locking it up. Modeling, self-medication, and seeking independence. There is a quote from a student who gave a testimonial on a documentary, and it was a young man who said, I used to be real athletic. When I started using drugs, I just stopped playing altogether because I thought I had more important things to do. So thinking about that, a lot of times, we consider, sports kind of keep kids away from it, but don't forget that there is still that curiosity and that peer influence. Don't forget that that could be a stressor in some cases. So always having that assessment with your kids, checking in, especially this time. In general, when I'm reading things and researching things, just don't let your kids sit alone in their rooms or isolate themselves more than they are now. Pull them out. Sometimes they do want a little alone time, especially as they're getting older. That's okay. But just know what becomes detrimental, what becomes withdrawing, because then we're seeking other things. All right. Keep well. Stay safe. Happy Three Kings Day or Little Christmas, whatever you use as a terminology to celebrate. I wish you well. And I will tune in tomorrow again with you. We'll talk about having the conversation, for when you're ready. having that conversation about substances. Okay? Have a great day.